Hey everybody, good day to you or good evening to you. Welcome to chapter 7 of Nigel Harwood's English language teaching materials, theory and practice. We're going to be discussing chapter 7, a genre-based approach to developing materials for writing. So we're going to understand more of what that means, the genre-based approach. Genre. All right, very cool. Starting. So the writer actually is not Harwood, but Tribble. I think it's Christopher Tribble. Yes, Christopher Tribble. On page 157 in your books, you will find that chapter. Tribble states, he starts with this in the chapter, states that the most important language fact when preparing materials to support EFL writing development is the difference between spoken and written language. So he starts us off by thinking the real differences between spoken and written language. And there are real differences. Writing is seen as the preferred medium for recording permanent accounts, laws, and even what is held to be scientifically true. For example, if something's printed in a science magazine or in a newspaper, the printedness of it gives it an authority. Obviously, if something's written in a law, the writtenness of it gives it its own authority as well. In contrast, Tribble points out how speaking is more at the heart of our interhuman and human relationships. Interhuman and human are the same thing. Anyway, our needs to persuade, to move, and entertain. So right here we have some Bart Simpson in a classroom making all his classmates laugh. While over here we have a lawyer using some law-like speaking with words that you'd usually find in writing, not in verbal communication. There's a whole ecosystem of words that coexist together in different genres. I'm probably confusing you. This will make more sense, I hope. So Kress is summarizing the subtleties between written speech and verbal speech. He says the structure of speech starts from the question. So this is for not written speech and verbal speech. Written communication versus verbal communication. In verbal communication, the speech starts from the question, what can I assume as a common and shared knowledge for my addressee and myself? On the other hand, for writing, Kress writes that writing starts with the question, what is most important topically to me in the sentence which I am about to write? So for example, we have these two people talking about the soup. Here they have a kind of shared understanding that they're eating soup, I guess. One says to the other, there are way too many toxins in my tomato soup. That is, you know what? We're using the words my, other things. Yes, Tribble talks about the lexical density and the lexical sparseness, arguing that in writing there is more of a lexical density. I think it is seen because we want to say what is topically most important in the sense we're writing. We're going to say that at the beginning of our sentence. We just get it done in our sentences. We stack our sentences. While in verbalness, there's more of a sparseness and space, while there's still a complexity to our spoken words. We're like, he writes about we establish a lot of I and you when we speak. We really connect to the other in our speech. While in writing, we're kind of more, what's the most important thing that we're stating? So there's real differences between our speech and writing. The division between writing and speaking is profound. According to Tribble, learning to achieve this shift can be a major challenge for learners, especially those whose main reason for engaging in language learning is for spoken fluency. I've fallen victim to this mindset when am learning Spanish. I'm still learning Spanish, to be honest. Yeah, I grew up speaking it. The idea of written and reading was like followed after learning to speak it from growing up as a kid. It's harder, it's different. It's a different ecosystem as well. For a lot of people learning to speak English, I think it's the same thing, especially if you're like here and you're new to the area, new to the place, new to the country, new to the culture. You want to be able to communicate. And I think speech is what is our first instinct, as what is most for basically to make it and survive and stuff. I think I would feel the same. To speak is so important. it seems of so much more high importance than writing, especially if you're learning to speak still. To push our students to write is to push them to do something almost abstract, because it does contain a lot of abstraction that we're going to look at into now. Tribble then explains the importance. So I'm just going then because this is how the chapter goes. So maybe I shouldn't do this, but this is how I did it. So we're going to settle for it. Tribble, settle for it. We're going to settle for it. Why not? Screw it. No. All right. I'll edit this out. Tribble then explains the importance of writing in English, as well as what writing in a given language culturally brings with it. What does writing in a given language culturally bring with it? Stubbs writes, Stubbs is another author who Tribble is quoting. Stubbs writes, the mere fact that something is written conveys its own message. For example, of permanence and authority. Certain people write and certain kinds of things get written. Yes, there is. Yeah, whoa, let's see what happens. Red words. Certain people write and certain kinds of things get written. What is the power dynamic of the written word? Who gets to make written words? Who has the resource to print and to distribute? Who has the who gets to get published? Who gets to be seen? Who gets to basically tap into the resources that are there? Certain people write and certain things get written. Certain kinds of things get written. There's obviously gatekeepers to the written word. Yeah. So yeah, there's this book called The Medium is the Message. I forget, I think it's McClure. I should know it, but I don't need to remember. I should know it. I don't remember it. It's a writer. The Medium is the Message is a book. It argues that literally the way the medium of something that it comes to us. So you're receiving this through a computer that's recorded. This is its own medium and it contains its own messaging. I have a computer, I have a camera, I can speak, I can make PowerPoints. These are PowerPoint. These are all things that are culturally loaded with significance. So other things, this person on a computer, a book, a record, each of these devices, each of these outputs that output information, like a book pours out words, you could say the TV pours out images, the computer, you're typing on it. I don't know, man, the computer one's a little bit like a TV, I guess, but they're different. They are different. Not everyone has access to these things. So let's compare these written things here. We have books, yes, we have newspapers, and we have these essays. This is literally the essay I turned into Dr. Popal today. You can look at it. It looks good. I like how it came out, looking good. But they each carry cultural significance. You know what, that word is hard for me. So you don't know what your students need. What do your students need to do? Do they need to write essays? Do they need to be writing books? Do they need to write newspapers? For each class, it will be different. Tribble marks out two asks we teachers bring to our students. First, we are asking our learners to take on roles they might not have access to in their first language. Second, we are asking our learners to engage with literacy practices that they may consider largely superfluous to their primary need to communicate through speech. So we already talked about that. A lot of people might be like less motivated to practice writing. Yeah. And the idea of roles that might not have access in the first language. Yeah, writing brings apart a lot of, I think it brings a lot of power, honestly, in this culture, especially in the US. To be able to write something, if you're not able to suddenly being able to, you are granted some more space to make your living. Yeah, maybe that space wasn't allowed where somebody's coming from. Maybe it wasn't an option. I don't know. I think it is very, I think, yeah, for sure. Anyway. So yes, there's learning to write and there's writing to learn. Tribble divides these two up, learning to write and writing to learn. An aspiring writer will challenge themselves to learn how to extend their textual knowledge and cognitive capacities and rhetorical skills in order to take on different social roles and to produce distinct genres and texts. Someone writing to learn instead, especially common when learning a language, will instead use the writing system to practice new language knowledge. So you might be writing about animals to remember more details about animals. You might be writing about transportation stories to get more familiarized with the vocabulary around transportation, versus someone who is an aspiring writer, not just fiction, but aspiring writer in the sense of what if you are trying to get a job where you have to summarize an event that happened, or you have to write a letter, a persuasive letter to someone you're reaching out to sell houses or to get them to vote, for example. So that's the writer we're talking about, the writer of different genres. Oh, and I had color coded them because these are the two differences. I forgot to use them while using. Anyway, apprenticeship. We are teaching our writers to be apprentices to different writing genres, be it writing in a persuasive, like we've mentioned, or be it writing expository, or be it writing, there's so many different ways that we write. Each of them are loaded and important and we should try to create the situation for them to be written in, so that in the real world, when they run into them, they have a backing of learning to do so. You have to write up a list. Somebody says, all right, I need you to write down a list of these things. All right, we've practiced that. We can write a list that we can share to someone else, or taking notes, or like we've said, summarize, or give me as much detail as possible, write down all these details. For example, of a really important one, say your landlord is not fixing your fridge. It's been a really long time. You need to complain. You write a complaint. How can you write your own complaint? Giving the students the tools to be able to have voice the power of a written complaint. What does that mean? We know that there is power to that. If it's only verbal, where's your paper trail? The paper trail, the importance of it. This graduation cap signifies that they have practiced it. They have a familiarity with it that you've brought them as the teacher. So a crucial step when engaging a student with the writing from different genres and roles is to make sure the writing practice is relevant to the student's future and current needs. You have to figure out, do they need to know these different genres and roles? Is this totally useless to them? So yeah, that's something as teachers we need to do. A quick brainstorm. What are some examples of useful / relevant genres of writing for different student populations? I think we're each kind of going to gear up to our own student populations. Like I kind of have some student populations in mind, but I think you probably have your own. So like think for yourself, what would be useful, relevant genres of writing for the different student populations, maybe specifically the populations you hope to be working with and plan to be working with. What are the useful and relevant genres? Yeah. So Tribble divides what a writer needs to know into 4 sections. The first is content knowledge. Content knowledge is concepts involved in a subject area. So, for example, mechanical engineering. That is a content area with a bunch of content knowledge that you probably don't know too much about, but you might be assigned to work with students learning English to write within this domain, within this content subject area. Another thing might be like molecular biology. Another very important thing might be nursing. I think that's an example used in the book. Like, how can you write writing material to students about nursing? If you are not aware of nursing, Tribble gives us the advice to work with someone who is right. So it says, who is an expert on the field or who can help you with knowledge and creating material for the students. A good solution to this is for a writing teacher to team up with a specialist. That's the summarized statement. So first, content knowledge. The second thing a writer needs to know is context knowledge. So first, content, second, context. Context knowledge is knowledge of a social context in which a text will be read, including the reader's expectations and the knowledge of the co-texts alongside which a new text will be read. So here we have 2 audiences. One's reacting very positively. All these people say are reading a student's work. They're like, yes, this is good. This is of the genre. You are up to the role. You're doing the things correctly. And then we have these people over here to the right who are disappointed with a thumbs down. They're like, what? This is not what the writing is supposed to be like. It's a cruel world out there, and our students should have practice in creating the material to the audience as well as correctly is the goal. And to do that, they have to know what other writing is saying. No writing exists in the vacuum. If it's of a genre, they should know the genres so they know who that audience is, how they would react, what's already been said, and otherwise. So yes, the way to do this is to read, to study, to compare, and once again to read. Reading can mean a lot of things, like it could be on YouTube. Reading isn't reading all the time anymore. What am I talking about? I don't know. I think you understand me. Reading, study, compare. Information into brain. That's this picture right here says it so well. You just, whatever this is, whatever information into brain is, all these will work. So the third thing a writer needs, oopsie daisy, is to have a language system knowledge. So language system knowledge is the knowledge of the aspects of the language system. I think I just repeated it. I don't think that was so helpful. This includes things like lexical knowledge, syntactical knowledge, the lexis and syntax that are necessary to complete the task. So we have the lawyer to our left who is using words that might be important if creating a legal thing with legal jargon, the jargon, what is important jargon, what's the lexical words that you need. But then here maybe we have syntax, maybe to our right here, this person's building an IKEA thing. Who knows what it is? Table, who knows? You need to know the structure and how to build on the structure. Like what's the structure? What are the rules? How do the sentences need to be formed? What can you not do? You have to know both the lexical and syntax. These are examples. There's more, but those are just two examples. So yes, the third thing the writer needs to know is the language system knowledge. The fourth and last thing a writer needs to have is writing process knowledge, knowledge of the most appropriate ways of approaching and tackling a writing task. So over here we have a brainstorm in the outcome, problem, characters, action, setting. Over here we have somebody about to write. So you need to know how to tackle the prompt. Maybe an employee is going to give them something to do. They have to know how to do it in a way. We could think of it like that, very, very like pragmatically. Yes. So just to go back, because I think it's important. So we have four sections. We have content knowledge, such as molecular biology. You might not know it, but you can work with a specialist. But you need to be able to bring this. If you are writing, you need to have a content knowledge. If you're writing about molecular biology, you have to know about molecular biology. Next up, you need to have context knowledge. What is this writing entering into? What's the context? It's not entering a vacuum, it's entering into something that's already there. You need to know what's been there, how the audiences have reacted, will react. You can't know how the audience will react unless you have kind of maybe read other things, been the audience yourself, understood who is being spoken to in other texts. You have to kind of read. Then here we have to know, this is called language system knowledge. What knowledge, what is like the lexical, what is the syntax that you need to be creating this? What are the building block constraints? And then here we have, how can you tackle the task? What's your game plan? What can you provide a student so when they have to do it on their own, they have some kind of plan to do so. When I go to write my chapter outlines, my chapter summaries, the 5-page, I have my own tactic. It's brutal, but I can do it. And we have to teach our students these skills as well. So Tribble then brings up Fee's teaching learning cycle for writing. It goes as following. Number 1, build the context. 2, model and deconstruct the text. 3, employ joint construction of a text. 4, employ independent construction of a text. 5, link to related texts. So this is really important. So imagine you have it on a fridge. Imagine you just print it out and put it on the fridge. I like that idea. I think that's a really important thing to do. So looking up closer once again, Maybe take a pause this video and look at that and read it to yourself. We build context, we model and deconstruct the text. I'll let you read the rest, but think about printing this and putting it on your fridge. So I won't look at this too long because I think this video is getting long here. I don't want it to be too long. But throughout the chapter, Tribble is talking about a certain examination, writing examination. So say you're working in the classroom and you need to get your students up to par so they can pass a written examination. This one, for example, is called the Cambridge First Certificate in English. Here is a composition topic choice that you might work with your students on. It says this: stricter punishments are the only way of solving a rising level of crime. To what extent do you agree with this statement? So you would work with the students here. The first thing you're going to do is to support learners as they develop their response to the task. Show them YouTube, show them books, show them articles. Next thing you're going to do is number 2. The second thing is you're going to model and reconstruct a model text. So maybe working with the whole class, you as a teacher are going to work with them to talk about yeah, you might look at a model text like we have here. Like you're going to look at an exemplar text. Here we have the effectiveness of police activities in reducing crime, disorder, and fear. You're going to look at this model text, exemplary text, a perfect text that you readers can read. And they should be looking and comparing it and asking questions about it, comparing different texts within a given genre, really establishing that this is a genre students are writing in, and to see like yeah, what the students can take before they start writing. So they have their opinion, and now they're going to see how other people have shared their opinions. The third thing now is to either have students jointly write or independently write. Writing, another way of saying it, is called text construction. Makes it sound like carpentry, like you're constructing something, but you're constructing with words here. So here's an important thing you can do with your students. It's called reformulation. Let's say your students have all written their drafts. You pick one out randomly or something, or you pick one out specifically, make it anonymous, and you have an expert writer, maybe in a field, maybe if you're writing about molecular biology, the molecular biologist will look at student writing and rewrite it in a way that is perfect to that person's mood or model. Maybe they're an expert in writing papers on molecular biology, for example. You will then share the anonymous paper with the class, not saying whose it is, that obviously the student whose it is will know. And then you share the revised version and you say, what differences can we see here? There's a ton of ways to look at the differences. I recommend looking through chapter 7 and you will find the different ways of doing them. Yeah, we have move structure, we have information structure, and we have lexical grammar structure. So we have like literal, so I would just look at those. Page 171, you can find that information. Comparing them. From there, after they see these examples, dissecting one individual thing, their own drafts can be made independently from that point. You don't have to do that for each text. You can do it with one and discuss those differences. Oh no. All right, we're here. Okay, the final step is to link text within a given genre to other texts. This is after we've written with our students. We're going to then, in a way, look at other model texts. This could be texts that do the job or texts that don't do the job. For example, we have BuzzFeed and the Harvard Business Review. The point I was trying to get is that one is obviously more professional than the other. Think about a text that an article full of all caps, or an article full of acronyms, or an article using kind of like jargon that you wouldn't want to use in an examination, versus an article that hits all the boxes, that does all the things that you would want your students to be doing during their examinations. Have them compare the two, talk about the differences, and have them be looking for what they can take away. This is like a victory lap where they've already written, and this isn't for the examination, they're on their own. After that, that's it. But in your class, while you're teaching to the exam, for example, after they've written, give them another chance to really link their own writing, their own experience, their own gain knowledge one more time with other texts. Okay, and you know what? That's the last thing. Let's look at our fridge again. Number 1, build the context. Number 2, model and deconstruct the text. Number 3, employ joint construction of a text. Number 4, employ independent construction of a text. Number 5, link to related texts. So that is chapter 7, genre-based approach to developing materials for writing. I hope you can see this difference now. Yeah, the importance of actually thinking of a writing task, not just learning, not just writing to learn, but instead learning to write within different roles and different genres, putting students in the shoes of real relevant roles and real relevant genres that will serve them in their life as they are acquiring a new language. I'm going to be posting a discussion question, so go check that out. It'll be on there, and I look forward to reading responses. Thank you for your time, and I hope this has proven useful. It's a very good article. It's a good chapter. I like it. I really do. Cool. Take care. Thank you.